Hello everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here. So today we're going to talk about a new series of videos that I'm going to be starting to do here, and that happens to be the Wishful Thinking series. So what is this exactly? It's just going to be me just going off about like how I wish this was a game that was real, or this was like ideas that I wish they could do for like a new game, or basically just going off on just random ass ideas that I just came up with that I think would be really awesome if they happened. So knowing that, I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea thinking that, oh, this is like hard evidence where this is gonna happen, a bunch of rumor bait bullshit. Nah, it's not gonna be like that at all. I mean, I wish it happened, but then I wouldn't be talking about it in this video series, wouldn't I? So that's the gist of it. It's pretty much just like a dream game idea that I just came up with that I think would be pretty cool to hear like some discussions about it. And of course you guys always feel free to mention some of yours too. So the first topic that I came up with for wishful thinking is, what if we got a new Vampire Hunter D game? A game based after one of my all-time favorite anime films. Now, I'm sure some of you are probably thinking, well, there already is one. It's on PS1, and it was like a survival horror type game with pre-rendered backgrounds and everything. And you'd think I would love a game like that, because I do love all those things, but unfortunately, I thought it was pretty bad. So pretty much, I'm here to say, like, what if they made a new one, and they actually did it right? So for the first thing we want to talk about, if they ever were to make a new Vampire Hunter D game, what would the gameplay be like? Well, there's two ideas I think that would work with this quite well. So there's a 3D beat-em-up hack-and-slash type of idea, and then there's also a 2D side-scroller. And we'll go over both of them, but first, we'll go over the 3D action game. So if it were to play like this, I think a very good game to be compared to would be a game like Castlevania's Curse of Darkness. Yeah, it seems pretty obvious that I would compare Vampire Hunter D to Castlevania games, but it really would work so fucking well. So I think it would have like the same idea where you like run around in like a castle, or even outside the castle, just beat the shit out of some monsters while you also level up and collect items and change weapons and whatnot. And maybe there is some interesting mechanics they can do with D's left hand. Now, in case anyone is watching this and you haven't seen the film, basically his left hand has a face on it, and it even has his own personality and everything. And he usually likes to have some witty dialogue, which is always amusing. And of course, his left hand also has some of his own abilities of himself, so there's definitely a lot of ideas they can definitely do with that. Like maybe you can actually find like hidden walls that lead to secret treasures and all that. Or maybe you can use them to like finish off an enemy to get like extra EXP. And maybe he might have his own level ups too, almost like he is like a familiar like from the ones from Castlevania. And just like a lot of Castlevania games, you gotta have like the big boss fights where you get to take on like giant enemies, or even enemies that are like your own size but have like familiar weapons. And maybe instead of having the entire game take place in the ginormous castle, maybe you can also have like other locations, just like in the second film, Bloodlust, where it literally starts from like, the graveyard, and then you get like the desert, then you get the swamp and the forest, and then it eventually leads up to the giant castle at the end. I think that would actually be pretty cool. Of course, I wouldn't have a problem if it all just took place in the castle, like the crappy PS1 game, but as long as they make it right. And that brings me to the next idea, is that like, what would they do with the story? Like, would they have it take place after one of the movies, whether it be the first one, Bloodlust, or would they base it after one of the books that never got made into a movie? Or would they come up with something original? I mean, I'd be perfectly fine with either one, honestly, as long as it still fits within the same tone as like the movies and the books. As much as I like my ridiculous bullshit, I don't think it would fit well with a game like this. So yeah, I'm really not too picky on the story, really. Now as for the graphics, what would they look like? Well, because this is an anime, well, I think it should be fitting for it to have an anime style. So of course I'm not expecting it to have like photorealism graphics like something out of like Call of Duty or like Last of Us 2 or anything like that. So yeah, I think the graphics in it, like, I think it should look good. Maybe not, like I said, photorealistic good, like pushing to the limits of like the next console generation. But I think it should at least have like the beautiful like dark gothic backgrounds and all that type of stuff with the intricate details. MD's character design, I feel like it should still like have like the iconic look where he has like, the big hat, the giant cape, and maybe has some armor pieces, but I want it to look slightly different though. Like obviously it would be cool to have like the original design from the 80s film and then have like the design from like Bloodlust. But I think for the main default outfit, like, it should still look very similar to those, but it just has, like, more, like, other details that they maybe didn't have. Unfortunately, I'm not a good artist, so I can't really show you exactly what I'm talking about, but I'm pretty sure you can kind of get the idea of what I'm talking about, or that I want it, like, an outfit that looks similar to the old stuff, but just, you know, maybe has some different details going on. And as for the music, like, who would I want the composer to be? Well, I think definitely someone from Castlevania. Anyone would work well, but I think the one that I think would work the best, and I think would be more realistic to get on board, would probably be Michiru Yamane. So obviously, she's amazing at what she does with doing all this type of like dark gothic sound effects, but she's also like still active today. But let's just say if they couldn't get her on board, I have two other ideas I think that would be pretty cool to see. So the first one I came up with is Masaharu Iwata. So the one game that I definitely know this guy from is from Shadow Hearts, one of my all-time favorite RPGs. And he also did music for games like Grim Grimoire and Odin Sphere. And he even did some songs from the game Baroque and even Soul Calibur throughout some of the games. So I think something like that could definitely work for this. Obviously it would have to sound more, like I said, dark and, you know, like have to have some organ in there. And also mixed in with some electric guitars and all that. So I think that would actually be pretty dope. And the other composer I had in mind is Daisuke Ichawa. In case you're wondering who he is actually the one that did the music for Knights of Azure. And that game had some pretty fantastic music, and is pretty much another example of a, like a gothic, like, 3D beat-em-up type of game. And yeah, having music like that in a Vampire Hunter D game would fucking rule. So I think those three would definitely be my top three if I were to pick either one of them. Now, as for the voice acting, well, I'm not gonna go too much into this one, but all I'm gonna say is that I think if they were to give, like, Dee a voice, I think realistically, they'll probably try and get the guy that did the redub of the 80s film, and that happens to be John Jermillion, since he's still very active. As much as I would like to have Andrew Philippot in here, that happens to be the voice of Dee from Bloodlust, unfortunately, he hasn't done anything since, like, 2006, so I think the chance of him, like, just coming back out again seem very unlikely. Though, of course, it's not impossible, but it just seems very unlikely. And unfortunately, I've heard that Michael McConaughey, the original voice of Dee from the 80s film, has been retired, so yeah, that's not gonna happen. Or they can always just get someone brand new to do it, although I'm not entirely sure who would be the best one to do it. I mean, Dee doesn't really have a lot of dialogue anyways, so it wouldn't be like a super hard role to do. As long as his voice has that like kind of like dark, serious, and kind of like I don't give a fuck type feeling to it, then yeah, I think it would work. And yeah, that's basically all I have to say about, like, what if they made a 3D action beat-em-up type game based after Vampire Hunter D, and I would be all over it. But we're not done yet, because we're gonna talk about, like, what if they made a 2D game? Well, there's two different styles I can see working here. They can make it like a straightforward level-to-level type game, or they can make a Metroidvania. Even though I do feel like Metroidvania games are kind of oversaturating the market right now, I think I would be more willing to, like, support, like, something like this, because at least it would be something very interesting to me. But yeah, if they made like a level-to-level platformer, yeah, obviously like Castlevania 4 would be a perfect example of that, or Rondo of Blood. And maybe just for fun, they can maybe have like a store that you can buy items from, like that happen in between levels. Or maybe instead of having, like, level to level, another good idea is to maybe have, like, a world map, and then you can just choose, like, which, level you want to play first. You know, kind of like, you know, like Super Mario or Shovel Knight for a more recent example. And, of course, in the world map, there's more than just, like, you know, levels. There's also just little areas you can go to where you can do, like, other secrets and whatnot. But I do think that the core gameplay should kind of have, like, some Castlevania-esque feel to them, where, you know, not only do you, like, just, like, run and jump and attack shit, but you also have like items that you can use that are used with like hearts. Well, maybe in this case it wouldn't be hearts, maybe it would just be something else. And as for the graphical style for a 2D game, I think if they got some of the people that did the sprite work for the Guilty Gear series, that would look fucking amazing. But if they wanted to keep it more classic and traditional, then they can always do like, like pixel art graphics. But of course, if they're gonna do pixel art, I don't think they should do like NES or something, because, that's already overdone. But I feel like they should do like, like PC98 style graphics. I fucking love that shit, and I'd be all over it. Or if not PC98 look, maybe they can do like that like Neo Geo type of style to it, where they have like the really nice beautiful like sprite work animation in the backgrounds, like a lot of stuff like that would be fucking amazing. So I think something like that would probably be my most favorite in terms of looks for a Vampire Hunter D game. And the composers, well, yet again, I think either having the same three that I mentioned earlier, either one of them would work here too. And the voice acting, I think, can pretty much be the same thing if they were to include it, but I do feel like for a lot of 2D games, though, I'm perfectly okay with them just being, like, all text. But one game that I will mention that does kind of have a similar look that I think would also look really cool, Vampire Hunter D, and plus it also does have voice acting too, is the game Reign of Dracula. Well, it has a first name to it, but I can't never fucking pronounce it. But yeah, this game was actually pretty cool, but I find it feels like more of a Contra game though. And as much as I do like Contra, I don't think that gameplay style would fit for Vampire Hunter D, but I still figured I'd mention it though, that it is actually a pretty cool game. So there you have it, that's all the ideas that I came up with for Vampire Hunter D if I got a new video game that I would like totally buy the shit out of like day one. So what do you all think? Would you buy this game, or do you think it's a pile of dog shit? Or would you actually come up with other ideas that I clearly haven't thought up of yet? I'm always willing to hear that. So with that said, thanks for watching and commenting, and have yourselves a great day.